Welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast, where we talk every week about building enduring great companies. Enduring is not just about endurance, it's about greatness over time and building upon success after success and lesson after lesson. I'm Kevin Lawrence in Vancouver, BC, Canada, joined here by my co-host, Brad Giles, down in Perth, Australia. Brad, how's it going today?
It's pretty good, thank you. I hope you're doing well.
I am as always. So, word of the day. What's the word that's resonating most with you today? What's the word you got?
Look, it's not what you think it's going to be. It's job
scorecards. It's never what I think it's going to be.
It's job scorecards.
So, that's pretty.
I've written this book about onboarding. It's going to come out one day soon. No, seriously, it's all complete, and it's hopefully only a month or two away. But a key part of that is the job scorecards and building the job scorecards correctly. And because I've done a lot of this work with the teams that I work with, all of the job scorecards have been refined and changed and are much better quality. So job scorecards is on my mind.
Awesome. Mine is resilience, also from my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, and just how damn important it is. And as I'm coming into vacation time, resilience is rebuilding your energy. And I look at resilience through the windows of body, mind, and spirit. And, when we're going real hard, it can affect and wear all of those down. And as we're planning vacation and thinking about the cool places we'll go and experience and what we'll do, even the planning and thinking about the vacation is building my resilience and kind of fueling my spirit. So resilient job scorecards, or you want job scorecards to add resilient people to your team. However you want to spin those two together, we don't care, but they do go together. Resilience is critical to success. So speaking of success, the topic today, we're talking about actually helping people to become more successful.
Yeah.
We're talking about what does it take to develop your middle managers, that next level leaders in your organization, who generally get neglected. And it's not because we don't care about them, it's that they're very much in managing a lot of the production of the business. They're leading all the people who are on the front lines and getting stuff done so that we're successful, delivering stuff to our customers, improving our systems, working really, really hard. And for whatever reason, in most companies, there becomes a gap of the middle manager's capabilities to pop up to the next level. And whether you call that a directive or a VP or an executive, whatever the heck you call it, to grow enough of them to get to the next level. So the distinction we think about is building a team of middle managers, which implies internal growth and development and hiring externally, versus growing internally those middle managers, homegrown talent, as people like to talk about it. And generally in the companies that we work with that are growing so quickly, it's hard to get enough homegrown talent. One, because of the speed of growth and sheer numbers, but two, because we just don't put enough energy into developing them.
So this is such an important topic. The teams that I work with, anyone who's listening would be kind of nodding their head, because so many times I've said in leadership teams, what you can't see, what you don't know is, as we continue to grow, we're like stretching a rubber band between us and the mid managers in the organization. And the big job that you don't know, that you can't see, is that we have to grow those people. We have to get them capable. You may recall, Kev, the phrase, the genius with 1,000 helpers.
Yep.
That's often how entrepreneurs start, and we can actually end up with a group of geniuses in the leadership team with 1,000 helpers. So the difference in capability, unless we work on it, between the leaders and the mid-managers can be massive, and it can actually be a huge impediment to growth.
It can, and it can, and normally, naturally, it will continue to grow because the CEOs are often out there learning like crazy. There'll be members of YPO or Vistage or Tech or another CEO forum group. They'll be out there, but they're learning incredibly. And a lot of that spills and trickles onto the executives. The executives also get to work with the high-level consultants and experts that the CEO brings in to help them as they move forward. So the CEOs and the executives are often surrounded with lots of amazing experts and advisors and people like us that are in there helping, but that often doesn't involve the next level. And they kind of they're left to get the work done. So we're going to dig into that. And the reason, basically because of this, people need to end up hiring many people into those middle manager roles to fill gaps. And sometimes you need to, but generally people end up needing to hire more than would be ideal in their mind. Secondly, there's many people in that group that have a lot of potential, but they don't ever find it. They get stagnant. They don't find ways to get to that next level because those doors aren't being opened for them, or the development opportunities aren't there from them. And in the end, the reality is most businesses aren't of the size where they have the full-blown leadership development programs. At some point, everyone ends up building their own internal universities and builds the competency to grow leaders, to grow those middle managers, or even frontline people to middle managers to, directors, and directors to executives. But you got to be well over 1,000 employees to get there. So what we're talking about is, what do you do now when you're busy just getting the work done? Those middle managers aren't getting developed. You don't have the systems, you don't have the competence or the expertise. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. The problem with that, right, is that as you continue to grow and as this problem becomes more prevalent, people then begin to think, I need to hire someone who has the experience, who's done this before, to step in to kind of bridge that gap. And that's not necessarily the ideal. Our job is to cultivate our people to be able to enable the growth that we're experiencing.
And a slightly different perspective, Brad, I think there is an ideal somewhere in there. Like, we need outside people for sure. The key is, if all of your new hires in the middle management, if 90% of them are from the outside, that's probably not the right amount, right? It should be whether it's 50% internal grown talent or 60% or 40%. I don't know the number, but we want some. We always want some outside people with been there, done that experience that can come and help us. We just don't want it to be the only answer we have to add to those middle managers. That's the key. And yeah.
So there's a few episodes to reference for those who are listening that are in a similar topic. Episode 55 of the Growth Whisperers podcast, Building a People Magnet Machine. Episode 67, Why Should People Want to Work for Your Company? Episode 46, 7 People Questions. So they're the relevant episodes to the subject that we're talking about today.
Awesome. And you can also, in Kevin's book, Your Oxygen Mask First, you can look at the chapter called Making Yourself Useless. You can also look at the chapter Stop Being Chief Problem Solver. That gets those are pieces that add on to this. So, all right. So the main thing we've got, we outlined, we do brainstorm. We said, well, there's probably like 7 points to making this work. And the first thing, as almost as it is with everything, what's your goal? Like, what do you want? Now, first of all, do you want 100% or 90% A players in your leadership roles in your company? I sure hope you do. Unless you're a competitor to one of my clients. And if you're a competitor to one of my clients, you should probably just stop listening to this podcast right now. If you compete with one of the great companies we work with, because we don't necessarily need you to know these kinds of things. But for the people that we work with, hey, listen in. So do you want 90% A players or 100% A players? What's the percent of internal promotions that you want, or the internally cultivated talent? What percentage do you want that to be? And that everyone's is different, but realistically, what is you'd like to see? And so starting with that, there are companies that only promote from within, like McDonald's. And I heard this recently, a few years ago, and it may or may not still be true, but at one point, the only way to become a store manager is to start in the front, and every single store manager grew through the system. Because that is their strategy. Frontline people move up, move up, move up. So what is your goal?
And the only point that I'd pick up on with what you said there is it's not just the leaders, it's the leadership team, the mid managers. As you think about the traditional pyramid shaped org chart, you want to get A players in all of the key positions as much as possible. And so that means that you've got to have all of those people growing. So imagine that you're the CEO looking at that pyramid of an org chart, and you've got a fishing rod to every single individual who's got the title of supervisor or manager or leader. You want to be growing all of those people. So you're just paying a little bit of attention to make sure that all of those people are growing all the time.
What does the fishing rod do?
Well, what it means is that you are drawing them in.
You're like reeling them in.
Yes.
I got it. I didn't. Okay, got it. Totally makes sense.
You're drawing them higher up as the company scales.
Drawing them. Yep, that's awesome. It's a bit of an Australian for drawing. Or reeling.
Yes. That is it.
That was awesome. So what's your goal? What do you want out of it? And then you also got to think, what do you want in terms of programs or management systems do you want to have? Like, what do you want to achieve here? Second, who is accountable? And this is a big debate. Truly the development of the middle of your direct reports is you as a manager or leader. That's part of your job. And it's HR's job to help you or assist you in this and provide the resources, tools, and sometimes the accountability. It's not HR's job to grow the people. It's HR job to put the resources there and make sure that managers step out of their busy work to do a bunch of this. So it's a little bit of both. When it gets to be, when you get into programs like leadership development programs, like our team does a lot of them for different companies because they're not big enough to build their own just yet. But when it gets to having leadership development programs, that's often driven by HR, but has quite a bit of executive involvement because it's meant for the benefit of the business, and the executive wants to be, have their fingerprints on it to make sure we're developing people in a way that they believe in.
I think you've outlined that really well. It makes me think about our good friend Liz Wiseman and her book Multipliers.
Yeah.
The great leaders that she calls multipliers, they multiply the capability of the people who report to them.
Yes.
And in the absence of that, then if HR is accountable for it, then they'll just get the processes and systems. But there's absolutely a role for the leader to grow the people who report to them.
Yep. It's an account. Some companies measure it. What percentage of people have you promoted? Again, being able to promoting of leaders is an indication that you're good at developing leaders. And then, so the next, 3 is you got to have a budget and a plan. Like if you don't have a budget and a plan for this, it's not gonna happen. Right. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but how are you going to allocate? And this is in many ways to develop leaders. It's like a farmer planting grapes today that will be ready for wine production in a few years. It takes time. It's not instant. It's not plant it today, get it tomorrow. So you have to be investing in the medium term to get benefits out of this. Again, just like a farmer of talent, and got to have a budget. And you got to have a plan of what you're going to do.
I remember I read a study of some of the most successful CEOs, and one of the things that they had in common is in their mid to late 20s, one of their leaders bet on them big. So, for example, they were sent to run a remote office, or they were given a high level of responsibility that kind of might have seemed a bit out of proportion at the time, but someone bet on them big, and then that got them to grow a lot faster than they otherwise should have.
Yes. They did what I call throwing him in the pool, stepping on their head to teach them how to swim. That's not a very nice image, but it makes...
Is that a Canadian thing?
It's a Canadian thing. Yeah, we do it with our kids. No, we don't do it. No, it's horrible. That absolutely we do not. But the point of it is that you put them in a crazy situation that they have no right being in, and then you let them figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you believe in them, and they have your belief and they have your support, but they got to fight like hell. and it helps them to be able to thrive, or they don't make it. But generally, people get those opportunities. Someone really pushes them very, very hard.
So you've got to have a plan and a budget. Sorry, the next one is, what's the program?
Yeah, and so I will say, like, our team does a lot of leadership development programs for companies, a lot, because they don't have the time. And we're talking, there's the education with giving them projects and challenges, coming up with ideas to improve things in the business, through to 360s, and sometimes even coaching if they need it. It takes an incredible amount of energy to build these programs. Generally, about 10 hours of prep for every single hour of delivery, which is why most companies don't do it. And it's hard to do it well. Like, it's a serious skill. So you got to decide, are we going to make that, or are we going to do we have enough economies of scale that we could make it ourselves and do it, or the skills, or do we buy it? And then if you do you need different programs for different levels? Like one company we work with, we've got 3 different programs that we run for different levels of the organization based on different needs. And each of those needs someone to facilitate it and the skills to do it. The main thing is, all you're generally to grow these leaders is that you're giving them some new thoughts, and then you're putting into a laboratory type setting to get them to work with these new thoughts and try new skills and work on new skills. Then they go away, they come back and report how they did. Again, it's not rocket science. It just takes time and energy and someone to lead it.
And prioritization.
The other thing go ahead, Brad.
And prioritization. I remember I went to Las Vegas to the Zappos headquarters, and I went on that tour. They've got a library that each person is able to got a whole collection of the selected books, and people can go in there and they can choose the books that are appropriate, that they decide with their manager that they're going to work through.
Yeah. So the idea of it is it coming up with a program that actually grows leaders. There's tons of research and examples out there of things that work. Generally, they need to learn more, and then they need opportunities to ingrain it inside them. The root of adult learning is discussion and debate in small groups. That's what gets it. It's not the content. It's the discussion, the debate, and then looking for how they can then go apply it in their world. So number 5 is the forum. Look, where do you do it? Some people have monthly trainings for programs or bi-monthly. Some people do it through projects. Sometimes it's coaching. Sometimes it's, new challenges. But what is the forum? I mean, from what we've seen, the ideal forum is a regular, whatever regular is for you, environment where there's learning, discussion, and then accountability to apply it. And then next time you report back. One of our clients, Ashana in India, they did this with their middle managers for years. They would bring them in every month. Now, not when there was a quarterly. So they would end up, I think, 8 or 9 times a year, the whole middleman. And they were coming in from around the country, and they spent a day doing this. So there was formal education, where it was a book they would read or an article they would read, discuss, debate, talk about how to decide. They would be making presentations to get decisions made in their organization for things that they were doing. There would be breakout groups to work on problems. Like, it was a full day event. And the idea of it is the executives were involved in working with them. Part of it was DNA transfer up, part of it was down, part of it was DNA transfer up, but they were in there working with the executives for a day a quarter with very conscious engineered learning experiences as part of it. That's a big way of doing it. Other people would do a monthly training and development program. Some other people send people away to other specific industry-specific development programs.
If you're going to make your mid-level managers, if you're going to make your mid-management team more effective and able to take on more projects and help to scale and compound the growth of the business, well, how different will they be in 1 year from now compared to today? That's the plan that we spoke about before. Yep. And then what is the things that you've got to do every week or month or quarter to achieve that growth of those mid-managers in a year's time? That's a different way to think about it, right? But that's the forum.
It is. And the key is you just can't have them attend meetings and listen and learn. They've got to be participating and doing and experimenting. That's, listening to updates from other departments isn't going to get them there.
Yep.
They've got to be involved. Number 6, who are the faculty? Who are the teachers and the coaches? And, the best is a blend between the executives and experts, because the executives know a lot of stuff and they're the best at their roles. Theoretically, they should be doing a lot of the teaching and training in this, but someone else normally needs to manage it so they can just be a guest speaker and they can be quickly involved, not taking the 10 hours for every hour of delivery. And the other piece for a lot of our companies we work with, and we're big on bringing learning to the company, they use this development, as part of this development is cascading the major learnings that the CEO and executive had with the rest of the business. So we'll be reading books by Collins and, multipliers by Liz. You talked about, maybe it's Blue Ocean Strategy, maybe it's Influence by Cialdini, maybe it's, Made to Thrive, your book, Brad, or chapters from my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, or Skill. 1 Minute Manager is one of the ultimate management books. It's outstanding. Point of it is, if the executive are learning and operating the business based on principles, cascading those things down so future people on the leadership or executive team are familiar with them. The key is that there needs to be people that do this, and the executives should be involved in a way that is respectful of the time. So should the CEO. When I was involved in scaling up, one of the CEOs I interviewed, he taught 10 books a year to the whole company. And every year, it would be like a conveyor belt. 2 books would drop off and he'd bring on 2 ones, repeat 8 from the previous year, and then 2 fresh ones. But he took it upon himself to do that teaching. Another company I interviewed out of Ireland, their executive team spent time learning every single week in the boardroom. They would spend a couple hours a week learning. And even in our own firm, we have at least a 20-minute session in our weekly meeting that's dedicated to learning every single week. So those are extreme examples, but there's a moderate example that would suit your organization.
So if you speak to younger executives or younger leaders, let's say in their 20s or early 30s, and they're thinking about moving jobs, one of the first things that they talk about is, what am I going to learn? This is a great opportunity because I'm going to learn so much. And they're highly tuned into that. So in that environment you just described, if that's taken away because they leave, they're not going to be learning as much. Therefore, it's kind of part of that second order engagement, I guess you'd say.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one of the things of retention, opportunities to learn and grow. And if you can provide it, they don't need to go somewhere else to get it.
Yeah.
Finally, who attends these things? I mean, ideally everyone, right? Ideally everyone. But when you're doing leadership development, there will be some people that are called high potentials. Now, don't go label them in the company. That's dangerous because then they get treated like a special club and it often will blow up and piss off everybody else. That's not in it. But if you're doing your talent reviews regularly with your team, you're going to know the people that have a lot of potential. You definitely want them in it.
Yeah.
But maybe there's the people that are just keen, or maybe people who want to be a part of it. Invest in them as well. If they're gonna, as someone said, well, what if I invest all this money in growing my people and they leave? And the other person said, well, what if they stay?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's worse if they stay. I'd rather develop them and have them on, do great things and move on to great things than keep them mediocre in the company the whole time.
It's just the attitude to have. Like, we need to grow our people. It's part of it, because it's going to be hard to succeed if we don't grow our people.
Yep. You bet. So let's review. So number 1, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve with the development of your people? What percentage of your people do you want to be A players? And what percentage do you want to be internally grown talent? Who owns it? Well, we know it's between HR and the manager, but the HR is ideally putting in the systems and structures to help the managers to execute it. You need a plan and a budget. And you got to figure out the program. Are we going to make it? Are we going to buy it? Are we going to rent it? And who are we doing it for? What does it look like? And then where do we do it? What's the forum? Is it part of a regular rhythm? Is it a special program? How do we bring it to life? Brad, you want to cover the final couple there?
Sure. So who are the faculty? Ideally, a mix of executives, peer coaches or buddies, and then external thought leaders. Jim Collins, Liz Wiseman, a couple of that we've spoken about.
Brad Giles is also a great choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, seriously, you can use this podcast. We've got so many topics
for sure
on this podcast that you can use and get people to listen to. And then finally, who attends? Who are the, I'll say, high potentials or hypos, or who are the people that we want to grow, who could, grow within the business, who could continue to grow in the business as we scale and add great value.
Who would provide a good return on investment for this growth?
Yeah.
So that's been our discussion around developing internal talent and growing that next level of leader we call mid-managers. Thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whisperers podcast. I'm Kevin Lawrence here with Brad Giles down in Perth, Australia. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. For the YouTube versions, search the Growth Whisperers at YouTube. You'll find us. And Brad and I both have newsletters we put a lot of time and energy in to share with our people because we believe in education. Education's the road to a lot of greatness. Brad is evolutionpartners.com.au. And Kevin, you can find at lawrenceandco.com. Have a great week. Keep thinking about investing in yourself and those critical people around you and throughout your whole organization. Have a good one.